legal.
The Cary Harrison Files. CaryHarrison.com.
And it is the Cary Harrison Files. Reminding you, we're also streaming right now live on YouTube. You can simply Google Cary Harrison YouTube and subscribe so we can stay connected when you show up at your destination. Simply switch over to the stream on your phone at the Cary Harrison YouTube channel. Also, don't forget to sign up for our newsletter at CaryHarrison.com. There you're going to get a transcript of the entire show, plus access to stuff we simply cannot, will not do on the radio. And that's our newsletter at CaryHarrison.com. Well, climate change, that mythical beast lurking somewhere between government conspiracy and inconvenient reality. I remember interviewing Al Gore a bunch of years ago, several different times, and he said, no, really, it's coming. And here we are today. Wherever you live, boy, have you seen something you never saw before in your lifetime. But recently, we've been told it's real, then we've been told it's not. And now you're mostly told to shut up about it and let the adults handle it. Those very same adults who still think oil spills are just aggressive seafood seasoning. But let's be honest. You don't need a PhD in environmental science to know that breathing in wildfire smoke from 3 states away isn't exactly a sign of a thriving planet. And while half the country argues over whether rising sea levels are real, the other half is busy investing in waterfront property that'll soon come with complimentary snorkeling gear. The president recently spoke about the California fires and said the following, and I quote, "I invaded Los Angeles and we opened up the water, and the water is now flowing down. They have so much water, they don't know what to do. They were sending it out to the Pacific for environmental reasons." Okay, can you believe it? And in the meantime, they lost 25,000 houses. They lost. And nobody's ever seen anything like it. But we have the water. Love to show you a picture. You've seen the picture. The water's flowing through the half pipes, you know. We have the big half pipes that go down. Used to, 25 years ago, they used to have plenty of water, but they turned it off for environmental reasons. Well, I turned it on for environmental reasons and also fire reasons. I don't think anything like could happen this way, but they didn't have enough water. Now the farmers are going to have water for their land and the water's there, but I actually had to break in. We broke in to do it because we had people who were afraid to give water. In particular, they were trying to protect a certain little fish. And I said, how could you protect a fish if you don't have water? They didn't have any water, so they're protecting a fish. And that didn't work out too well, by the way, end quote. I can't even translate that. It's like word salad extraordinaire. And that is the compass of the truth right then and there. Luckily, we have 2 guests who refuse to let the world burn without at least putting up a fight. And they're college students with more backbone than all of Congress. Ashton Maddox and Adrian Reyes-Alzate are senior students at the University of South Florida, where they've been knee-deep in the battle for climate justice, policy reform, and believe it or not, actual solutions. They don't just sit around shaking their fists at the sky. They're organizing, they're lobbying, they're drafting plans to ensure that Florida and beyond don't end up as Atlantis 2.0. How many Category 4 and 5 hurricanes in a single year does it take to make you scratch your head? Or the Gulf of America heating up to 101 degrees Fahrenheit? You have to pardon me for being cheeky, but it's way better than having me sob about the big, hairy climate mastodon lurking in the middle of the room. Ashton's been working with the Clio Institute, an environmental nonprofit pushing for community-driven solutions to our self-inflicted ecological collapse, while Adrian's also with the Clio Institute, has been using geographic information systems to map out just how bad things are, because nothing says we're doomed like a well-labeled, data-driven disaster forecast. These are the guys behind Tampa Bay's Climate Action and Equity Plan, which is a game-changing template that can be used nationwide. And now, because we live in an era where critical thinking is considered optional, let's enjoy a reality check amidst the slosh of propaganda and salesmanship. Ashton Maddox and Adrian Reyes-Alzate, I want to welcome you to the show.
Hi, Cary.
Hi.
Thank you.
Hi, Cary. Thank you for having us.
I am glad to have you guys here. Let's just start with climate change is a hoax, right? The government said so. Then they said it wasn't. Then they said it was again. Who's lying this week?
I'm going to go ahead
Take it
and
away.
disagree. I'm going to go ahead and disagree, Cary. Over 97% of climate scientists agree that climate change is real, and there's an unfortunate vocal minority that is convincing our leadership otherwise.
And what's the payoff for them to do that? It's not like you're a lawyer with a $10 million. Let's just call you a congressman, a lawyer with $10 million, completely ignorant, don't believe in gravity. Not possible. So what's the payoff, do you think?
Well, regulating polluters means you have to stand up to polluters. And when you don't have the incentives to stand up to polluters, then you're not going to do that, Cary. Unfortunately, the leaders of our government are not acting in a way in the interest of us, the young people, and then all people that live here. We look at the California fires, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that more later. And President Trump had his way of talking about it. But it is a real issue that is affecting all residents around the world, but here in the United States as well. And when the leaders are deciding to ignore this and just go along with what their big oil donators are telling them to, then that's the direction that they're going to go.
Maybe you guys could tell us a little bit more about the Clio Institute, first what the letters stand for, and then how the Clio Institute is making an impact.
Of course, the Clio Institute. So Clio itself actually stands for Climate Leadership Engagement Opportunities. And so we work as part of Gen Clio, as part of its youth branch. And we are really just trying to make a difference by educating the youth, advocating for environmental policy just on college campuses throughout Florida.
So you guys are involved in something. How old are you, if I may ask? This just helps, people that are like 85 appreciate that somebody is doing what they may have decided they're not going to do anymore. And that seems also to be the problem. You guys are in your 20s?
We are still 20, exactly.
20 years old.
Awesome. So you're going to be stuck on this spinning orb for another 70 years plus. Who knows? Maybe genetic engineering will let you live to 1,000, but maybe you don't want to. Not if the weather sucks every possible day. So you've got real skin in the game. What is it that we can do? We regular people ourselves, if we can't rely on the government yet.
Well, community members can participate in local environmental initiatives. Here in Tampa Bay, we have the Hillsborough Affordable Energy Coalition. I'm sure there are similar organizations wherever your listeners are. And there are things that people do in their daily life as well.
I would say the number one thing is just to educate yourself and see, how can I make a difference? Just you being you, going about your regular day. So whether that means educating yourself about local organizations and how you can maybe volunteer once a week, or whether that's donating a little bit of money, just seeing where you can help out.
Ashton Maddox and Adrian Reyes-Elzate, grassroots organizing. It sounds great, but how do you cut through the noise of corporate greenwashing and political apathy? How do you get people off their skateboards or Netflix and into action? You guys have done it actually successfully. I want to know the trick.
Well, we stand in front of those skateboards, Cary. We wave them down. It really is quite difficult to get students away from their day-to-day routine or just their apathy and move it towards action. But I do genuinely believe that most people believe that climate change is real. And if we could just turn that belief of an actual issue into a belief of urgency, then that is how we can get some action done. And that's what we've been able to do on campus.
And here in California, the recent California fires, it wasn't make-believe, it wasn't fake news. And, we've spent a whole lot of time raising money to try to help thousands of people and then their neighbors, and they've lost jobs. And it's ridiculous, the domino effect. And you guys are aware of all of this. What can we do? Not that you have the answer, but you guys have been on the path to getting the needle moved. The victims get it. The perpetrators, or let's say the collaborators, also get it, but they're playing the game for financial gain. And as we heard earlier, if you disrupt that gain somehow, it can change things. Is there a plan to do that with you and 80 million other 20-year-olds?
There is. We want to disrupt the local political process as much as we can. We want to make a difference, and whether that's actually legislation or whether that's electing the right people as our political leaders. Adrian and I, we were just helping to draft the Hillsborough County Affordable Energy and Climate Plan, and so we're trying to get that initiated as a county-wide thing. So we're really hopeful for the future.
You're also up against something that the rest of us are not aware of. And at the university level, you actually have free speech until 5 p.m. At 5:01, it becomes, I know, people are going, what? Oh, come on, seriously. But free speech until 5 p.m., and you're supposed to be in a free speech zone. So first tell me, where is the free speech zone located so that you can go there?
Yeah, you're so right, Cary. I don't know if our leadership at the USF knows this, but the Constitution doesn't necessarily limit where it works on campus. But the free speech zone is a very inconvenient patch of grass in the middle of campus. That is where we're allowed to be demonstrating until 5 p.m., that is. And this is not just USF that's doing this. This has been seen around college campuses around the country that have put in these rules to limit our free speech.
Was there ever a time when this didn't exist so that you see this is like really not good, or has it always been that way and you've just dealt with it?
So these rules were put in place in response to the protests that were happening in October of last year, I believe. And they were meant to prevent demonstrations from, quote unquote, getting out of hand. But in reality, it was just disrupting, as protests do.
So, I mean, I'm still just spinning at the thought of free speech after 5 p.m. We have a federal government that will implement that at some point, find a way to do that. And they've certainly found other ways around that. But you guys are eyewitnesses to what that really means. So I'm guessing at 5:01 p.m., the sheriff could theoretically come in and just have you removed and probably punish you for exercising your First Amendment, which is against the law. Again, this is a collision of ideas that I can't sort out.
Yeah, so that is. Sorry, go ahead.
So obviously this is scary for us. No one told me this was a 9-to-5 free speech area upon going to college and applying. But I think this was most felt during the election season, just last year, end of 2024. We were out there trying to get people registered to vote, trying to help people be informed and everything. But there was voter suppression, and what we saw with this lack of free speech after 5. And so, people didn't know where to go vote on campus. People didn't know where the room was. We were 150 feet away as required by law, but people actually had to go much further than that just to go to the room that was up multiple flights of stairs.
We're talking right now to Adrian Reyes-Alzate, a senior at the University of South Florida, specializing in geographic information systems, also a regional organizer with the Clio Institute. He's been in the trenches, mobilizing communities, pushing policymakers, and shaping climate action plans with the kind of precision usually reserved for satellite imagery. We also have Ashton Maddox, another senior at the University of South Florida, studying environmental science and policy, pushing real community-driven solutions. Both are fiery Gen Zers. You guys are Gen Zers, or am I wrong?
No, you're 100%. Right.
Good for me. I got one thing right today. And they're looking to bridge the ever-widening gap between science and policy before we all end up cooking like a bad waffle on an angry griddle. If we do nothing, if we continue in this trajectory, what does it look like even 5 years from now?
More extreme storms, Cary. That's number one here in Florida. As I'm sure your listeners are aware, we got slammed twice in a row, Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton. And it's just going to be more of that. We know that storms rapidly intensify when the waters are heated up, and boy, are they heating up. And not just are they heating up, but the sea levels are rising. I'm not sure what it's going to take. I'm not sure how much flooding it's going to take for our leaders to take action, but that's what we're here for, to point that out and ask them to please, please, please take action.
If you're watching on YouTube right now, you're going to see images of these gigantic hurricanes, something out of the movie 2012 that I remember from a bunch of years ago, a Hollywood movie of, here's our fantasy of worst case scenario. Here it is. Double category 4 and 5 hurricanes hitting the same spot, wildfires absolutely collapsing the media capital of Earth, Los Angeles, where it just should not happen. you can go to the Cary Harrison YouTube channel. You're going to see video of our two guests and what it looks like to be alive and sentient during difficult times. You guys are dealing with purposeful limits on your ability to organize and reach out to others. You've got between 9 to 5 as if it's a corporate job. Okay, folks, grab your lunchbox, go home now. Thank you so much. But at 3 a.m, this stuff is still happening. Let's talk a little bit about the wildfires in California. That just wasn't a spontaneous oops. That's Mother Nature, drought, thirsty, and all other things going on at the same time, something that we have never seen in previous human history in Los Angeles.
So true. And I would say that as the planet warms up, like we talked about earlier, that our precipitation patterns are just going to change. And what that resulted in was less rainfall for the LA area. And as you saw, just one spark just lit the forest around there just on fire. And so it's a tragedy that this is what it caused, but this was something that we could have mitigated for future events.
Both of you here, that would include me, but you two, you actually understand what causes climate change. There are going to be people listening that are 4 times your age or 3 times your age that still don't get it. They just don't get it. They've been told now officially by the richest man in the world and his companion to buy a Tesla because of climate change, but there is no climate change. And then if you don't think about that, it makes great sense. But what is the thing that's causing the planet to heat up?
So when we're emitting greenhouse gases, whether you're driving your car or having a plastics factory, it goes up into the atmosphere and prevents heat from escaping the Earth. It's kind of like a warm blanket around the Earth. And that is the global warming right there. And we continue to see that happening. And that is why we go after polluters mainly, because these are the ways that we could stop climate change from continuing to happen.
All right, well, we're going to get into this in just a second. I'm going to ask you guys to pause. As we pause, on the other side, we're going to talk a little bit more about climate change, what you can do, how real it really is, and what you can expect if we don't push our leadership, whatever's left of it, to do the right thing. I know we've got other things that are just so massive that this seems like it should just take a back seat. But it turns out it's the front seat. If you really look at everything, it's right up there going neck and neck. And we're going to learn out why in just a second here on the Cary Harrison Files.
Smells like fish.
Tastes like chocolate.
It's the Cary Harrison Files. CaryHarrison.com.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? Well, you call low-cost airlines because they specialize in cheap flights, in discount hotel rooms, in cheap car rentals, and with the best price guarantee. Often 75% off. 901-235-1795. 901-235-1795. 901-235-1795. 901-235-1795.
And it is the Cary Harrison Files. Next week, we're also going to be live streaming on Substack, where we'll be joining folks like Tom Hartman and others. And you'll be able to see there right on your app. So you can also get our free newsletter at CaryHarrison.com, and that'll give you access to Substack. Want to make sure you're all there in case things drop out and you're driving and you show up at your destination. You can always switch over and watch the video, which is exactly the way to go. We're talking right now to Adrian Reyes-Alzate, a senior at the University of South Florida, specializing in geographic information systems. It sounds very dry, doesn't it? But he's very smart. And I am not like that. So I need him to specialize in geographic information systems so people like me can understand and share that with you. He's also a regional organizer with the Clio Institute. Both of them, the other them is Ashton Maddox, another senior at the University of South Florida, who's studying environmental science and policy, still legal before 5 p.m., and he pushes real community-driven solutions. Both are fiery Gen Zers, and they are, because you and I are sitting on our lofty petards, our large curd cottage cheese buttocks. They're bridging the ever widening gap between science and policy. I'm just way out of control today, aren't I? But without you, really, there is no us. Like we've been telling you, just leave it to the old white people. We're going to fix it for you. Somehow you have lost confidence in that.
Yeah, I wonder why that is. Could it be that our government has indicated that it's not a priority? Could it be that we have unfortunately gone backwards in terms of climate action on the federal level? Or could it be that we're still struggling with extreme weather events, as I talked about before? Hurricane Helene, Hurricane Milton, the fires in California. These are tangible effects of climate change that are affecting our everyday lives. And you were right at the beginning of the interview, Cary. We have 70 more years here. 70 more years of hurricanes and fires that we would hope that are not going to be as bad as we've seen in the last year.
Well, and they're likely, if nothing is done, to increase to the point where it's not livable anymore. We look at Europe. They are not pretending climate change is not real. In fact, Germany has 80% solarized at this point, and they're not known as a sunny tropical climate, let's face it. But they're mitigating the issues. Windmills, there's windmills in the middle of Italy. If you fly over Calabria, which is sort of the belly button of Italy, you will see windmills that go from one side of this peninsula-ish of Italy all the way to the other. Now, the mafia owns them, but that's okay because the EU has mandated the windmills, and nobody wants the windmills in their backyard. That's another problem that you guys could talk about. But the mafia is like, we'll handle the windmill problem. We'll just put them all in one line right across the belly button of Italy. But there they are. And so somehow it worked around. Even the mafia believes in climate change. So how is it that of the 280 million of us in America, I would like to think 75% know it's real, in fact, have been touched and affected by it. What do we do to touch them? How do we spark their interest?
I would hope 75% is true. But how we spark their interest is how we relate to them on an everyday scale. I mean, we can talk about the economy and how long-term it is very viable, it is very efficient to go to renewable energy sources. We can clean up our air, make it more breathable, more healthy for all of the residents in local areas. And by switching to a renewable economy, we really can help to alleviate the burden that we're going to face in the future.
So switching to a renewable economy, we all know intuitively that's a great idea. We're being told, oh, it's not profitable. Oh, we could never do it. Somehow we could never do that here. Could we do that here? And would it be profitable?
Of course we can do it here. And I'm rolling my eyes just hearing that, Cary, because affordable energy is becoming cheaper energy. And it's such a no-brainer, as you said, that if Germany can electrify to 80% with solar, that in a sunshine state like ours, that we can invest more in solar. Or in your listeners in California, in a sunny place like over there, that they can invest more in solar. Because it makes sense. It just makes sense. And it's unfortunate that it's been spun and politicized in such a way that now it's taboo to talk about.
So here we are at the crossroads. We're also at the crossroads of about 2 more minutes of the show, but I would love you guys to offer your recipe for what would you like to see everybody do, and what policies would you like to see happen so that we can at least envision it and somehow support it.
Yeah, so you pay now or you pay later. That's kind of at the heart of what we've been talking about. We want people to be investing in climate resiliency programs and different infrastructure investments as well that are going to allow us to have a long-term sustainable future. And Ashton could talk more on that.
Yeah, whether it's joining an organization like the Cleveland Institute that we are a part of, whether it's our coalition partners like Sierra Club and Food and Water Watch, just joining these organizations that will initiate change matters so much. And like we said, last week, we had 350 students go to the Florida Capitol. And we had the largest youth group ever go to the Florida Capitol and advocate for climate policy. So doing things like this really makes a difference.
And those students are able to go there through education. They're mobilized by us because we educate them. And Ashton said this earlier, but you have to educate yourself. There's a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of disinformation out there. And it's just about knowing what matters to you and how climate change is going to affect you.
Well, I want to thank you guys for coming on. I'm just so wildly enthused by how articulate and brilliant you are, and that you care, which means, well, it's up to you. And aren't you lucky that it's all up to you? But now that we know about it, it's up to us too. So you did good today, and we're going to have you back on again and again. We've been talking to Adrian Reyes Alzate, senior at the University of South Florida, specializing in geographic information systems, regional organizer with the Clio Institute, been in the trenches, mobilizing communities, pushing policymakers, shaping climate action plans with the kind of precision usually reserved for satellite imagery. Also, Ashton Maddox, another senior at University of South Florida, studying environmental science and policy, pushing real community-driven solutions, fiery Gen Zers looking to bridge the gap before we end up cooking, as I said, like a bad waffle on a hot griddle. I will call you at 5:01 and scream and see what happens. Fair enough?
Just don't get us in trouble.
Thank you so much,
Get you in
Cary.
trouble, I promise. Thank you guys for coming on today. Cary Harrison with you. This is the Cary Harrison Files, CaryHarrison.com. Look forward to seeing you next week.
This pussy grabs back. The Cary Harrison Files. CaryHarrison.com.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. Ouch! Well, by wearing a small remote device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, call now and get free shipping of your new CGM, plus we'll bill your insurance for you.
877-282-8102. That's 877-282-8102. 877-282-8102. 877-282-8102.